Hello, this is Sean with Beyond the Visual Spectrum. I'm going to share a story with you that took place in the early spring of 2017. My daughters and I went out to a state park in Northwest Florida, and it was a time of year when most people don't go swimming, but it was a warmer day, so it was warm enough to swim without getting too cold. So we decided to go, not only to test the waters out, but to also venture down a nature trail that was known to be very beautiful and have a lot of varieties of plant life, and people have reported to seeing small animals, raccoons, foxes, and sometimes rabbit or deer. But we went there to try to have that experience together. And we get to the state park, and there's not that many people in the parking lot. Just a couple of cars, and it's kind of nearing the end of the day, so it's about maybe 4 o'clock, 4:15, and you could kind of get the feeling that everybody's winding down. The people that were out there looked like they were starting to pack up their coolers and sheets and stuff that were on the sand, because the river has really nice like salt white sand around the banks. And so as we get there, we decided we'll just go down the nature trail first, and then come back to the water area, if we even decided to swim at this time. And as we're walking down the trail further and further, you can hear the people that were by the water talking in the background fade off in the distance. And we walked, and we were looking at all the plant life. It's very it had a canopy of trees, so it was even darker in the forest. It had a creepy feeling too. It was very somewhat swampy in some areas, but it had almost a kind of an eerie children's fairy tale type of feeling to this part of the forest. It was getting more absent of any type of animal sounds. The birds were starting to kind of taper off with their noises, and some of the insects that we could hear were getting a little more lower in volume. So we started noticing that, and as we go down the trail more and more, we're seeing animal tracks, foxes and some coyote tracks that were kind of weaving on and off the established human trail. And we saw some raccoon trails, and we saw swampy waters, on both sides of the trail in some places, where a gator or two of a medium size possibly could survive. But about 5 or 6 blocks, or maybe over half a mile down the trail, or 3/4 of a mile perhaps, we did smell a distinct odor that had almost a urine with sulfur type of smell. And it just came all of a sudden. It was very, very unnerving in this area, because it was absolutely quiet. You could hear your heartbeat. That's how quiet it was. Not one sound from any type of forest animal or insect. Could not hear the people in the background that were still by the water splashing and talking. You could only hear your breathing. You could actually hear your heartbeat. If you just didn't say a word and listen, you could hear your heartbeat. And it was that quiet. We smelled this very potent overbearing, musky, foul odor. It smelled more of like a urine with a rotten eggs type of smell, and it was very unclean. You wanted to try to get away from it. It also had maybe like a dumpsters type of smell, or the rotten food in a dumpster maybe. Can't really pinpoint it down to an accurate match, but it's very unpleasant, foul odor. And as we're walking out of this area, we're still looking at the tracks, but we're more concerned about looking at the forest at this time, because there was a strong feeling that me and my children felt that we were being watched at this point in time. And so we walked through maybe about 150 feet of this low and wet area that was almost swampy, but we got out of that area and it started going uphill. So the vegetation changed abruptly. It was more or less a pine forest that was starting, and you would see some yopon holly trees and some saw palmettos that were sporadically growing throughout the forest. But the forest wasn't as dense as the trail ascended up an elevation, probably 5 to 7 feet gradually, onto a more solid and denser trail sand dirt composition. What happened was, as we got up to this higher elevation on the trail, we walked maybe another 150, 200 feet, and there was you could tell that nothing else had walked on this, well, no humans had walked on this trail, because there was rain droplets, especially in this area, because it wasn't as covered as in a canopy area, but it was more open because the pine trees don't offer much canopy. But it was rain droplets on the trail, and it rained the night before, so apparently no one had traveled this trail that day. And then it was like 4:15, 4:30, about maybe 4:30 at that time, or a little bit later. And so that says that whatever was on the trail came after the rain. And so we didn't see any human footprints, shoe prints, or anything like that. We did see the animal tracks, but we noticed this area where across the trail there was a track, not walking on the trail with the trail, but crossing the trail. And it was a maybe 13.5 inch footprint that looked very human-like, but not quite. It had a the toenail strikes that were in the sand were actually more like claw marks. So it was, and the angle of the toes was deformed. It was kind of like the toes were crooked, animal looking, but what animal I don't know. This is where I believe this was one of the Dogman variations, what they call a type 3, where it may have more of a human type of track or foot instead of a canine. It would, instead of having the digitigrade tracks, it would have a palmagrade. It's more of a flat foot impact strike, and that would make it more like a similarity to a Bigfoot track, but with claw marks. So like almost like a human foot, but with not nails coming out of the tip, but actual claws. And it was very wide too, and the heel strike was deep. And there was sand there, similar to a beach sand, but it was compact, and if you just walked on it with an average walk, you would not really press down too hard. I mean, you wouldn't leave that much of an indentation in the sand. And if you stomped on it or you ran on it, it would then. But I had stomped in the sand next to this, or not so close to mess it up, but a few feet away from it to see how deep my footprint would go, and it was probably less than half the depth of this one, and I'm almost 200 pounds. So this track was actually going across the trail, and the second track was the trail only had this full footprint on it, and it was not in the middle of the trail, but it was kind of on the left side of the trail, and the second impact track was just off the trail. And so this track was like, I mean, these tracks are about 5 feet apart. The second one was just the impact of the heel, where the rest of it went off the trail onto the grass, and you could see where it came from. It came through a grassy area that was maybe shin high on an adult that's about 6 feet, so maybe about 1.5 foot tall grass, kind of a dry grass. I'm not sure what variety, but the grass meadow with sporadic pine trees and saw palmettos and all that went on for like 200 yards or 600 feet, and you could see for maybe 40 or 50 feet out that where it had been stomped down, where each foot had pressed down some of the grass. You could see where it walked. So it crossed the trail and then went into the woods where the swampy area was, which actually would have cut over to where we smelled that strong sulfur smell. It was almost perfect where the location where it cut across this part of the trail and entered into the low and wet area. So that made sense that we smelled something that smelled sulfury and like urine and just a rotten smell, because this creature had went straight into that area where we were at, and just a few minutes before. So apparently this all happened like right when we were there, and it was out there watching us. When we saw that, and I took a picture of it next to my foot, we got out of there. That was just that was too much, and this track was a couple inches wider than my foot, and I'm size 12, and now I'm about almost 200 pounds. So it was a good 3 inches longer than my foot. So we're talking about like a size 16, maybe 17 shoe, and that's way bigger than like I don't even know anybody with a foot that big. So and the way that the toes are angled, and the claw tips that left indentations in the sand was very unhuman looking. So I'm going to leave it at like this, is that that was a close possible encounter, and it could have if we had stayed out there a little later, but these things are apparently more common around state parks and national forests. I don't know if that's because they're more protected there, or the forests are denser there, or they're I don't know, but anyway, that's my story, and I hope you enjoyed it, and like and subscribe. Thank you.